The story opens up with George H.W. Bush telling the American people that Allied forces attacked Iraq and Kuwait. An old man eats and watches the news story. He slowly walks to the kitchen to toss out his TV dinner and places his keys on the counter. It has the number 36 on it. He chops up a dead animal and drops one of the heads. He goes to reach for it, but ends up having a heart attack, and the entrails fall on top of him. While driving, Nick listens to the radio about a rant over immigrants. How immigrants stake and take from the American people. Nick agrees with the rant, while the radio spokesman emphasizes the importance of white rights. He arrives at an auction for storage units. Those who die leave their stuff behind, and it's auctioned off to anyone who wants it. Eddie talks to the crowd of people and says there could be gold in there, or just a pile of poop. He starts with lot 36, owned by the same man for years. He opens the storage unit and only gives the people a peek of the storage unit before locking it up. The crowd is excited for this unit, and it reaches up to $400. Nick leaves after he wins, since he bought what he wanted. Later, Nick talks to a man named Tommy who is angry with Nick for leaving the county. Tommy says he wants his money, and Nick says he had to leave the county in order to make money. Eddie walks in on the phone conversation. It seems Nick and Eddie have brokered a deal with the storage units. The last unit Nick bought, Eddie got a cut of some of the things Nick was able to sell. Nick pays for lot 36, and Eddie pockets some of it since he doesn't make enough per hour. Eddie shows him a videotape of the old dude who once owned the storage unit. The old guy hops a few times before opening up his unit. Apparently he's owned it since 1945. Eddie notes that the bags that the old man brought are now empty. Eddie says the old man drops off something in there for decades. Then the old man is shown doing the hop again. Eddie finally gives him the keys to lot 36. And reminds Nick that he's the one who tipped him off to this special lot. Nick flips him off as he leaves. Amelia comes in to pay her bill. Eddie is confused because they ended up selling Amelia's unit since she didn't get in touch with them. Amelia is furious because she never got a call. Eddie points at Nick just outside the window and says Nick was the one who bought her unit. She rushes outside to explain that Nick bought her unit, number 87. Nick says that's not his problem because he sold most of her things or threw it away. He questions where Amelia came from, and Amelia says she's from America. She says that all those personal items have no value to Nick, so he should just give it back. Nick asks for $1,000, but Amelia says that's how much money she makes in a month. Nick gives her the old unit's padlock and walks away. Amelia says, "I hope you rot in hell" in Spanish, and Nick retorts that she should learn how to insult him in English since she's in his country. Nick goes to lot 36, and it's filled to the brim with random things. Nick finds Eddie in one of the units, and Nick complains that lot 36 is a lot smaller than this one. Nick complains that he should have gotten a lower price. Eddie is pissed because there's a leak in the pipes. He tells Nick he should let Amelia take some of her things, but Nick refuses. Eddie says that Amelia is a really good person, and Nick says that's not his problem. Nick went to war and has received the shit end of the stick with his ringing ears. His wife left him, and now he wants what's his. Eddie says that the system has always been rigged for black and brown people. Nick walks away to gather all the things from lot 36. The lights are on a dial timer and have to be turned on constantly. Inside the storage unit, Nick finds an antique candle holder and photos of the SS soldiers. He finds a weird framed wreath, then the jackpot, a circular wooden Saiyan star thingy. He brings all of this to his truck, but a man grabs him out of his car and smacks him. He says $12,000 tomorrow. Then he smashes his truck some more. Nick notices Amelia staring at him, then tells her to go away. He goes inside the office to use the first aid kit on his beat-up head. Eddie walks in and tells him to sit for a bit. Nick says he needs to get his items appraised right away. Eddie decides to give him the address to a high-value appraiser instead. Nick shows Agatha the candle holder, and she admires it, but it's not that great. Agatha notices the Saiyan stable and touches the stars on it. She presses on it, and it opens a drawer of 3 books. They are written in Latin. Agatha says she knows someone who would be interested in all these items. Nick shows Agatha the framed artwork, and it's made of human hair. Agatha tells him to smell it, but Nick is weirded out by it. Agatha then leaves to call Roland to come over to check out the books. Roland notes that the reddish color of the table is made of blood. Then he sees the 3 books, but wonders if there is a fourth volume. Nick says it's possible the fourth volume is still in the unit. Roland says all 4 books could cost $400,000. The fourth book is the rarest because it can bind a demon into our world. The book would also burn itself once it's used. Roland gives him the money to buy all of the items. He says if they find the fourth volume, then he's willing to write a check for $300,000. Nick suggests Roland come with him now to check the unit. They leave, and in the car, Roland says he knows the family who owned Lot 36. The family was on the side of the Germans in World War II and made tanks for them. Roland says the guy used his own sister to be used as a vessel to summon an entity. Her name was Dottie Woolmar, and she was never found. Nick doesn't believe any of this. They go in the storage unit, and Roland holds the candelabra and says it would yield protection for them. Nick tells him to stop with all this cult stuff. The two go through all the things in the unit. The lights go off, so Nick has to turn the dial every now and then. Nick goes out to toss the junk. Meanwhile, Roland finds newspaper articles of the missing woman Dottie Woolmar. Amelia spies on Nick from afar as he tosses out the trash. Then, Nick realizes there's a hollow wall, so they move furniture to open a secret passageway. Roland gets the candelabra ready. Nick opens the door, and a really foul smell consumes them. Roland tells Nick not to touch anything and to follow his every move, because if anything from the natural world crosses the threshold, the thing will sense the greed and darkness in Nick. The walls are covered with a bunch of newspaper articles and Jesus Christ on the cross. They comment about the horrible smell again. Then they see something laying on the floor. Roland says it's Dottie Woolmar, and she must be really weak and starving. He says her hair is fused to the floor. It took Dottie's face to get into her body. They see the book across the room, and Nick goes in for it. Roland tries to stop him, but Nick has already crossed the circle. The stars flash, and the demon wakes up, its tentacles looking for its meal. Nick runs behind Roland. Then the demon consumes Roland. The book combusts by itself, so Nick drops it and runs out. He's lost in the storage unit halls. Then the light turns off. Luckily, he's by the dial and turns it back on. The demon is on his tail, and the lights are off once again. Nick finds a door, but it's locked. Amelia is on the other side, and Nick is relieved. However, Amelia shows him the padlock that Nick gave her earlier that day. Nick begs her to open the door, but Amelia decides to lock him in with the demon. Nick leaves the area to find another way out, but he's consumed by the demon instead.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.